Hello, my dear students and the rest of the learners. Welcome to part 13 of a 22-part series of tutorials in Managed Database System using Microsoft Access. In this presentation, we are going to learn on how you key in your data into the tables you have already created and how to save your data in those tables. Or it is called populating data into your database. My name is Memeji M, or you can simply call me Emily Swap. So, how do you make sure that you key in your data appropriately into a database? The very first thing that you need to do before you key in your data into a database or before you populate your data is to ensure that all the data you are going to key in is already ready and available for entry. So you commence the process of populating data into the database by ensuring that, first of all, your data is ready and in the appropriate format. And in fact, also organized in the way you expect it to be organized in your tables. So you should make sure that you have that data ready. Once you have made sure that the data is ready or available, you proceed to enter that data into the table or into each table. So after you have designed your tables, you have set the table properties, you have set the required input masks, and you have set all other properties as we learned in part 11 of the series and part 10 of the series, plus the previous parts in this series. You can then proceed to enter the data into the tables as follows. So you open your table in the side view. Then you start typing the data in the table by pressing the Tab key to move to the next cell. When you have completed the record or row, you press Enter. You can also directly copy your data from a spreadsheet or a table in a WordProcessor if already you have prepared that data and organized it as it is organized in the tables. And then you paste it directly in the table in the side view if the data has been organized as per the fields in the table and with the appropriate properties. After you have keyed in your data, then you proceed and you save that data. How do you save it? You save your data by simply clicking on Save icon on the toolbar. Then, if the table didn't have a name, you proceed and give it a name. But already in our case, we have our tables, and each of the table has a name. And therefore, our work is simply to key in our data into the database, or we copy and paste our data into our tables in our database. And therefore, if the name is not there already, you key in the name. And then finally, you click on OK. And you can also move from one field to another in a table. You can do navigations using the arrow keys at the bottom of the table to navigate across the records. You can also sort the records in a table by positioning your cursor in the field that you wish to sort by clicking on any record in the table, and then you click either sort ascending or sort descending icon on the Home tab in the Sort and Filter group. So the following is the data that we are going to populate into our tables, and it is organized as follows. So for our students table, this is the data that we are going to key in or that we are going to enter. If already you have your data organized in such a format, your work is simply to copy your data and paste it into the respective databases or into the respective tables, as we are going to see. So you can see how our data looks like, and the fields organized in that manner. So if you have keyed your tables, if you have typed your data in this form, for example, using Microsoft Word, and you want to transfer this data into your table, you just open the students table and then just copy and paste this data into your table in the same format. If any error is displayed, then you can proceed and handle the error based on the requirements of rectification. So let us populate this data into our table. So what we are going to do, we are going to open our table and then we key in this data into it in Access. So what we do to enter the data into your tables, you first of all open your database. So you go to your computer and then open your database. So this is my database, this Emily Swap School. So you open your database into which you want to enter your data. Now, not this one. This one is Emily Swap Hotel. So let's close this one. We open Emily Swap School. So just click on it and click on Open. So this is our database. We want to enter data into each of the tables, beginning with the students table. So you just double click on students table. There we go. So this is the students table and it is ready for entry of data. And the data that we want to key into it is this data. So this is the data that you want to type into our table. So you can type this data directly, one piece at a time on each cell as you press tab, or you can just copy all this data and paste it into your table. So if you have your data organized like in this form, this is my data. What you just need to do is you select all your data if it is properly organized. That means if the data is organized in the form of fields, as those fields appear in our database, like in the students table in Access, our fields are organized as student ID, first name, last name, etc. in this order. So if you have already typed your data and it is organized in this order, and when you open the database, the table, you see it is organized in the same order, this way, then what you do is you just right click that way, and then you click on paste. If you are given a message like this, you cannot add or change a record because a latent record is required in a table called the programs. You go to that table called the programs, but ensure you read the messages you are given. Like, do you want to suppress further the error messages? Let me click on no. Let me click on OK. I want to continue. We cancel that. So you can see one of the problems is if you are entering your data directly into the tables by copying and pasting, you are bound to have some errors because there are certain fields that you must enter first. So what we are going to do, let us close this table. And then you can see there's a table which has been generated here with errors. So if you open this table, you'll be able to see where the errors are. One thing that is very clear is that our data does not have errors, but we are supposed to have entered the programs table first. So let's see, we can close this. Then we can delete this table for errors that way. Let's open it again and see what it will tell us. So if we open it again, and then we go back and copy the data for only this row, let's see what it is going to tell us, whether it will give us the same kind of an error or a different error. So we can just click there. First of all, let us remove, there is this field here, which says add record. We can delete this field first if there's an option for deletion. Do we have any? No. So we can just try again. Remember, we are learning, so you paste. So you can see we have pasted our first record. Let's paste another one. Remember, you can still type them directly. So let's also choose example. Let's choose those ones up to there. We copy. Remember, you can copy or just type directly. So you cannot add or change a record because a different one is there. So let's click here. You can see it is telling us we cannot change or we cannot do blah, 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 blah. You cannot add or change a record because a different record is going in table called program. So in this case, the best thing that we need to do, we can leave that table there, go to the programs table, then we can, let's remember, we want to see how it is behaving first. Once you are learning, let's, for example, select these records also from here. That is the programs table. We copy all of them. We copy all that data. Then we come and paste it here. Let's see what it will tell us. You cannot add or change a record because a latent record is required is student in the table called departments. Let's click yes. Okay. So you can see, because when we have created relationships, you can see what we are being told. So let's go to the next table and see what it will tell us. We have been given some error message from departments. So let's open departments. I want you to see what happens when we are copying and pasting. So we go to departments table. Let's select these fields or this data, and then we paste it in the departments table and see what it will tell us. So you can see this one has accepted all the fields by pasting first. So when you find that when you try to paste some data, your database is generating some message that you cannot make a change in one table because similar data is in another table, you will go all the way to the very last one, the one which will accept you to do the pasting. And then you begin with the pasting the data there first. And remember, you can also do the typing directly. So you go there first, and then you move in the reverse. So let's save this table there. So I can close in departments, close. Then the second one, which we need to fill, is the programs table. So let's go back to our data for the programs table. Here is my data. Remember, you can type this one directly, one-on-one, or you can just copy and paste. So we go back to our programs table and we try to paste. We see whether it will accept. You see, it has accepted. And what is it telling us? You are about to paste 5 records. Are you sure you want to paste these records? You can click on yes. So you can see we have pasted our data. And that's okay. So you save this data, then you can close the programs table. Let's now see if the students table will now allow us to enter the remaining data. So we select the students table, we click on students table, we leave the first record because already we have that data for the first student there. We copy this data and then we try to paste it now here. So right click there, you click on paste. You can see It's telling us we are about to paste 6 records. Are you sure you want to paste? You click yes. Now, my dear students and the rest of the learners, I want you to know something here. What I am doing in this demo is simply to show you how to paste your data into the tables if you have already done the typing and you've organized the fields in the order they are supposed to appear in the database, in another table or in a spreadsheet. And that is always the easiest way. But when you are pasting, after you have created the relationships, it's always important to note that there is an order in which you are supposed to fill your tables because you have already created relationships. There is an order to ensure the aspect of duplicates, redundancies, and etc. accounted for. Like in this case, you have noted we have tried to begin by entering data in students table. It has given us issues that the changes we are making in this table are required in the programs table. So we have gone this programs table, we are trying to paste our data there. It has told us that the changes we want to make are also going to affect another database or another table called what? Another table called courses. Is it courses? We have another table called departments. So we had to begin with the department first, then we have gone to programs, and then we have ended with students. So that is very important to note when you are doing the pasting. And once you have done, you have entered your data, and you can always type one after the other. You always remember to click on save. So let me close all these tables. So far, we have been able to enter data for students table, this data here. And if you check this data, it is the same as this data here. So we have been able to capture the students' data. We have populated it in our database here, just as it is. So remember, you can type this data directly on the fields or on the table or on the database, on the table directly. But if you have to do this, you have to ensure that this data is well organized. Let me show you. You can see this data. Let me just place it on the screen at this point. If you check here, you can see S001 is Jane Jerry, and you can see that is exactly that. Let me align them properly. Jane Jerry, and you can see the data is in that order. So if you have to do copy and paste, ensure that the data that you have typed in once, like this one, the fields are arranged in the same order as they appear in your table. You can see the order. So once the order is okay, the order of fields is okay, then and you have ensured that the data is meeting the requirements, you just copy it and paste. Or you just type one after the other. How do you type? You click on the first field you type, click on the next field you type, all the way like that, from one table to another. So the next table that we have been able to deal with, we have been able to enter data for the students table. We have also entered data for our programs table. You can see. So that is our next table. So from the first table, from students table, the next table is the departments table. But before we look at the departments table, let me go to the table that we have already worked on, the programs table. You have noted that when we enter data in the students table, we underfilled there. I want to take you there. We underfilled called program ID. So because of this program ID, this field, we had to enter data into the programs table before we entered in the students table because of this field here. So we had to fill this data first. Before now, we can be able to enter data into the students table. So that's why we were prompted to fill the programs table first. But as you can see, the programs table has also this field, the last field here, called department ID. So because of that, we had to enter data in the departments table first. So what was the order? The order of entering our data was, first of all, we had to key in, or we had to capture the data or enter the data or populate the data for department ID first. Then we had to go to the programs table next because of this field called department ID. So we filled this data. And then from there, we moved to the students table. Why? Because the students table has the program ID. So after we have populated this data, then the data here is supposed to be common with the data in the programs table. So we have filled those three tables. We have filled the students table, we have filled the departments table, and we have filled the programs table. So which tables are remaining? The tables that are remaining is the departments table. So we have there, not departments table, but we have the following tables. We have the courses table. We have the enrollments table, and we have the payments table. That's the data. So what we are supposed to do next, after we have been able to populate the data for students table, let's see it. This is the data for students table. Then we have been able to populate the data for which other table? For programs table. Let's see. We open the programs table. Here it is. We have filled the data. And then we have been able to populate the data for the departments table. So what we need to do now is populate data for the remaining fields or the remaining tables. So the next table is which one? Is now to go to the fourth table, which is courses table. The courses table. So what we need to do is we can go to our database, Microsoft Access. We can close these tables, close. We can click on close all. And then now we open the courses table. First of all, we can delete this table for errors here. So we have our courses table. So you just double click on the courses table. Once you have double clicked on the courses table, you can type your data here directly. But if you have your data, like my data here, I have my data for the courses here. So if you have your data already and it's arranged as per the fields in the database, that is in the table for the database, you just copy and then come to this field, this table, right click that way, then click on paste. Then you are being told you are about to paste 7 records. Are you sure you want to paste these records? You can click on yes. So you can see we have already populated our data for the courses table. And remember, you can always type this data one at a time manually. Then you can click on save button. So how do you type? You just click on each of the cells and then you type. You type for each. You just type. you just type what you want. So you just click that way and do your typing as you want. Once you are done, I can delete this. I don't need this. You must enter value in the courses ID. Let me just type something. Let me just type something. You must enter a value in the course ID. So let me click here. This is just for the sake of allowing me proceed. So I can even type that way. You must enter a value in the course ID here. So we can type something. Let me just type something here. I'll delete this one, my dear students and the rest of the learners. Anytime you find you are being limited, you cannot move before you have entered something. It's always good to enter something. And then you can delete this. Let me type, for example, 003. If you find yourself being restricted from moving from one part to another, it's always good to enter something, but then you can delete. So I can delete this field. I can delete that. Delete that. Now you can see the type of restrictions we get, so you can undo. The best way is if you make a change and you find your computer is giving you restrictions you cannot move. There is a change you have brought and it is not really required. You can always undo the way I've done it. Sometimes students get restricted from moving or progressing because they have clicked on a field which must be filled. So in that case, if you cannot be able to move ahead, you can always click on the undo button to undo a change which you have brought. And if there is an error in your field, you can always rectify so that access allows you to move ahead. So I can save that. So I can now close the courses table. Let's see which tables are empty. The courses table is now filled. The departments table has been populated. Enrollments, not yet. Payments, not yet. Programs, yes. Students, yes. So I can close that. Close programs. Leave payments. Or let us close all of them. So let's see the next data to populate. Our next data is for enrollments table. One thing you must note, my dear students, and the rest of the learners, is that some of these fields are repeated in other tables. For example, the student ID is in a table called students. Course ID is in a table called courses. Academic is in a table called what? That one is not anywhere else, and the term. So these fields called student ID and the course ID, the data must be the same. The data must be similar. The data must be similar. So to populate this data for enrollments, I already have my data. So here it is. So just select your data, all of it. You click on copy. Go to your database, open the table called enrollments. Right click or point on the edge here till it changes that way. You click it once, then right click, you click on paste. You can see it's telling me you are about to paste 11 records. Are you sure you want to paste these records? You click on yes. You can see when you are pasting, always remember to click on save. You can see if you have typed your data and you have organized it, which is very important, you have organized it in Word or even in a spreadsheet, you can always copy your data directly and paste it in your table. It's always the fastest way instead of spending a lot of time typing it word for word in Access. But there is nothing wrong with also typing directly on your fields, on your tables. So we have entered our data in the enrollments table, so I can close it. So far, we have entered our data in the courses table. We have our data for the departments table. We have the data for our enrollments table. We have the data in the programs table. We have the data in the students table. So which table is remaining? The table which is remaining is payments. So I want to close all these. Then I open the payments table. So from the payments table, I can click on my material, on my soft copy tables, the data. Remember, this is my data which is needed for entry. As we have said, it's always good to ensure that before you start populating the data in your tables, already you have the data with you. So this is my data. So, and it is the one here in my presentation. The data that I want us now to upload is this data. And in this format, note the format. And to ensure that the data adheres to this format, like the student ID, you can see the data begins with S followed by a number of numbers. So this format is what we set the input mask and validation rules in the previous presentation of the series. So if you want to know how you do that, including a situation where you choose among us some payment methods so that people do not enter payment methods that don't exist. If you want to know more about that, you can watch the video or the presentation, which is part 12 of the demo, and also watch part 11. So let's enter this data into our students, into our payments table. So I'll select my data here. I'll just select my data instead of typing one at a time. I'll click copy. Then I open my payments table. I right click or I point on the edge here on the first record. Then I right click my mouse button and click on paste. Then you click on yes. And you can see that is our data. So we have finalized populating our data into our database, and you can always adjust the fields as you want. So you click on save button. So far, our database is now ready. We have been able to create the tables, set the properties, set the input mask validation rules. We have been able to create the relationships, as you can see. And now we have been able to populate our data into each of our tables. Here is our data in the courses table. That's our data. And how many courses are here? You have 70 courses. Introduction to Programming, Databases, Accounting 1, Marketing, Social Psychology, Circuit Theory, Food Production, etc. We have the departments table, and you can see we have 5 departments there. Enrollments table, you can see we have a number of enrollments there. A payments table, and to open our table to see the data, just double click. You can see we have our data there. Programs table, we have our data there. And the students table, we have the student details in our tables. And therefore, my dear students and the rest of the learners, by now, we have been able to populate all our tables in our database, and therefore we can close that database there, because now we are ready to move to the next level. of database management. And therefore, my dear students and the rest of the learners, we have come to the end of part 13 of the series, and you can now proceed to more automated steps of creating queries from our database or performing what we call the automated tasks from the database. And therefore, by now, we have been able to lay accurate foundation on the requirements for creating a database. We have been able to design our database so far. We have been able to create or to design our tables. We have been able to determine or to set our fields, our primary keys, our field properties. We have been able to set the validation rules, the input masks. We have set all those properties, and we have also been able to populate data into our tables. And therefore, that marks the end of the first part of the series is the first set. The next set of the presentations will be now automation, where we are going to start now looking at the queries, how we generate queries from a database, how we make use of forms for automation, and how we produce the reports from the database. So we are done with phase one of building or laying what we call the foundation for our database and providing our database with data. So the next set of presentations from presentation number 14 all the way to part 22, we are going to be looking on the other side now of making use of the database that you have already created. And therefore, you can continue to part 14 of 22, in which you are going to learn on how to create queries in the side view. Congratulations, therefore, for learning part 13 of 22 on populating and saving data into relational tables in Microsoft Access. You can access the rest of the parts in the series, as well as other computer or ICT videos by clicking or tapping on the Meliswap ICT YouTube channel below this video. To subscribe to the channel, tap on subscribe button below this video in YouTube if it's not currently reading as subscribed. You can also join Meliswap ICT YouTube channel as a special subscriber or a special member by clicking on join button and then following the prompts that will be displayed depending on the level of membership that you want to be allocated. For any further correspondence, kindly write to us through the email emilyswap@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening to me. Let's meet in part 14 of the series, and God bless.